5.2 is, again, another lesson this week. But before we move on to that, let's take a look at our basic skills. Yesterday, we looked at division, where the first number goes on the inside, the second number goes on the outside. I think about the phrase inside out. You then ask yourself, does 5 go into 3, which it doesn't? Then you ask yourself, how many times 5 goes into the next part, which is 37. Again, counting by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Well, 35 was 7 times. Again, check that for yourself. You then multiply, getting 7 times 5 is 35, and switch the sign to subtract. 37 minus 5 is 2. You then bring down the next number, which is 5. You ask yourself then how many times 5 goes into 25, which is 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Switch the sign, subtract that, and get 0. And again, what MathXL is going to say is what's your first line, what's your second line, negative 35, third line, 25, fourth line, negative 25, and final line is 0. You should end at 0 every time. If you don't end at 0, it means you messed up somewhere else, so just feel free to check that work. The next thing we talked about was the integers, which is positive and negative whole numbers. This is just like the black and white game, where here the positives win by 2. So the negative team scored 6, positive team scored 8. Positives win by 2. In this situation, looks like the negatives win by 7. And in this situation right here, looks like the negatives scored 8. So hopefully you're getting fast at that. There's a lot of people who, whenever they don't do that silly black and white game, that they can't think that fast. But hopefully you're now to the point to where you can look and say, yep, positives by 2, negatives by 7, and then combine them to make negative 8. To save time, we stopped on our basic skills in the last lesson, so our next basic skill is what we call finding the common denominator. And it does say common denominator, but you want the least common multiple is what that means. The common denominator is found by focusing on the denominators of the two fractions and looking for the smallest, which would be your least, multiple that they have in common, which is where common, smallest common multiple. Now, here's where last week comes into play, or last couple weeks comes into play, because on your homework you should have seen multiples, which means you either got better at doing multiples, or you at least know how to make your multiples, which means when they ask you what's the common denominator, you're looking at 6 and you're looking at 8. And so if necessary, you make the multiples for, I would actually make it for the bigger number, so 8. So 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, and so on. And you don't really need to go all the way through, because if you're decent with your multiplication, you could say, does 6 go into 8? No. Does 6 go into 16? No. Does 6 go into 24? Yes. And if you want to know, as you're making that, just do, if 6 goes into 8, 8 divided by 6 doesn't work. 16 divided by 6 doesn't work. But 24 divided by 6 does work, which is what tells you that your common denominator is 24. That's all you need to do. So we'll be doing that for at least 4 weeks. But again, common denominator on that, that's where we are. If you had 9 and 4, again, I would start with the bigger number and 9. And then you can ask yourself, if you're getting better at this, does 4 go into 9? Nope. Next one for 9 is 18. Does 4 go into 18? Nope. Next for 9 is 27. Nope. Next one's 36. Yep. And that would be your number, 36. So the better you are, you can actually do this in your head and just go 9, no, 18, no, 27, no, 36, yes. Or you can go 8, no, 16, no, 24, yes. And once you find it, that's your common denominator. So even if you're not good with your factors, you could literally just make your tree here. 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, 30, 30, hold on, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. And then you can look for the smallest numbers on both lists. 4 is not up there, 8's not up there, 12's not up there, 16, no, 24, no, 28, no, 32, nope, 36 is the first smallest number in both of them. Least common multiple, all right? So today what we're going to do is take your experience with distributive property a step further. So far we've seen problems where the outside value meets 2 things inside of parentheses, but sometimes there's more than 2. There could be anywhere from 3 to 5 to wherever they want to put in there. So look at this example before we copy the rest of our notes. Again, don't copy this, but just to show you, this is where you would say 7 meets 5t and 7 meets negative 8u and 7 meets negative 9v. And so you would say 7 times 5 is 35, bring down to t. You would say 7 times negative 8 is negative 56, bring down to u. And then you would say 7 times negative 9 is negative 63, bring down the v. As I said, you probably won't have to show that step. If you're getting better at it, then I would say practice it this way, going straight here, because that's really where you want to be. And that's where I'm going to work these out on my calculator. So the work is still the same. We still want to list all the meetings, or at least consider them for those of you who don't need to, who don't need to show them anymore. The following problems should be copied for your notes again, so you have something to kind of guide your directions. I am not going to show the meetings. What I'm going to do instead is work it out. I'm going to say 8 meets 3m in my head. 8 times 3 is a positive 24. Bring down the m. Then I'm going to say in my head 8 meets negative 7. Well, 8 times negative 7 would be negative 56 because the signs are different. Bring down the n. Then I'm going to say in my head that 8 meets negative 9p. Positive times a negative is negative. 8 times 9, 72. Bring down the p. That's all. Again, you can do the middle step if you want to, but the better you get, you want to get to the point where you don't need to show that middle step anymore. Here, again, showing that first meeting, negative 5 times 5 is a negative 25 because the signs are different. Bring down the letter D. This is negative 5 times negative 8. That's why you got to be careful, which is a positive 40. Bring down an E. This is negative 5 times positive 4, which is negative 20. Bring down the F. And again, that's how you probably want to practice it. Now, I know you want to get your homework done, but the most important thing we want to be able to do is work these out the real way. So I suggest trying it out on the first time you do it. I'd say try it on your computer without writing all that stuff. And if that doesn't work, then get a piece of paper or borrow a piece of paper from me, or use the paper that's on your desk, and then write out the middle step. But you do want to try to do it without showing that step. For example, when I see this, I can't do that in my head, but I know what I'm doing. I'm doing negative 3.3 times 6 equals, which is negative 19.8 R. I know that when I do this, I'm doing negative 3.3 times 4. Again, I don't need to put the variable because I know the variable is there. Negative 13.2 S comes down. And then here I know I'm doing negative 3.3 times negative 9, which is positive 29.7. Bring down the T. All right, so that's where we are. Hopefully you're getting better at that, but just take your time on this section. Remember that it's just a small extension beyond what we've learned to do so far. Again, be sure to speak up if you're having issues. Make sure make your own attempt. Again, I can't help you. No teacher can help you if you're asking for help on a problem and you haven't at least started or haven't at least put something down on paper. That is where you're waiting for us to give you the answer, and that's not going to happen in here. So just make sure you are doing that, and we should be okay. Outside of that, good luck, and I'll talk to you later.